but I knew he wasn't getting better.
I was afraid to go back to sleep.
What could possibly be wrong with him?
Did you not hear me? Are you trying to kill me?
My whole world just crashed.
Next, 3 medical mysteries that defied the experts. The Salems thought their son had a bad sinus infection until he wound up in the hospital, fighting for his life.
It was our son that we had lived with for 2 years, and all of a sudden, we might not have him for a third.
Charmin was a size 2 Southern California beauty, until her body began to undergo a terrifying metamorphosis.
It's very humiliating to have to be in maternity clothes when you had been a size 2.
And Harley Howard's doctors thought he had a heart problem. They never imagined what was really going on.
And I told my wife, I am just resolved to die because there's nothing I can do.
When illness strikes, we look to doctors to give us answers. But what if they can't? For these unlucky patients, diagnosis is a mystery. But what if you receive first-rate treatment for the wrong disease? In 1995, Harley Howard is a healthy 40-year-old family man and a preacher, busy with his own nightly radio show. But one night on the freeway driving back from the radio station, Harley has a scare.
About 5 miles from the house, my heart just started beating quite rapidly, and then it started going irregular and fast.
I had laid back the seat in the car, getting a little nap on the way home, and Harley says, my heart is acting funny. And he began to rub his chest, so immediately I was wide awake.
They drive straight to the ER, where doctors immediately start an EKG on Harley.
And they found out that the heart rate was between 150 and 160 beats per minute, and it was erratic. It was just beating crazy.
Harley's blood pressure is also high. He's admitted to the hospital, and over the next 3 days, doctors put him through a battery of tests.
Blood tests, urinalysis, EKGs. They were trying so desperately to get the heart rate down, and that would take days.
Doctors decide to try a medication that opens the blood vessels, increasing blood flow to the heart. After a few days, it seems to work. Harley's heart calms down, and he is discharged from the hospital.
Harley, because of heart conditions already in his family, he just thought this may be something that's hereditary. He pretty much took it in stride.
Around the same time, DeWanda notices something strange.
His snoring was increasing. He would snore very loudly, and it was sometimes, and then
every now and then I might wake myself up in a snore. But the funny thing is she snores as loud as I do.
Neither of them think of snoring as anything serious, so they don't worry. But as time goes on, Harley begins to notice other changes. He starts having nightmares.
I would always wake up, and there was this terror, sweats, fear, just scared.
Harley's terrifying dreams come almost every night.
They were always nightmares concerning death. I would always die in them. After having a nightmare and my heart was just racing, I would just get up because I was afraid to go back to sleep.
When Harley tells his doctors about the nightmares, they don't seem concerned.
They just said, keep taking your medication and keep coming back.
But soon the normally energetic preacher is overcome with exhaustion.
He would consistently want to take naps between services, and he would shut the door of his office, sometimes even put a sign up warning people not to disturb him.
When I would go in to wake him up from an hour's nap, he's still feeling tired, drained even, so he would lay there another hour.
Harley is also developing extremely painful and debilitating headaches.
He would have migraines all the time, and sometimes they would last for days.
My head could not rest on anything. I'd have a pillow around the neck to keep my head from touching the back of a chair.
He would take over-the-counter medicines for it, but they did nothing.
In 1999, 4 years after the first incident, Harley has another scare.
Woke up, another nightmare, another headache, massive headache, heart just racing.
His heart was beating so fast, it felt like it was going to jump out of his chest.
Dee rushes Harley to the ER. just like the last time, his heart rate is dangerously high. Doctors quickly administer nitroglycerin, a common treatment for chest pain and heart failure.
All my muscular functions were just gone. I'm just flailing. And I felt my heart rate just dip.
Harley's heart rate comes under control again, but doctors need to figure out what is causing these problems in the first place. They perform an ultrasound. The results take Harley completely by surprise.
And she said, quoting, "You have no heart abnormalities." And when she said that, I went like, what am I doing here then? If there's nothing wrong with the heart, then what's been happening all these years? My whole world just crashed.
Harley Howard has spent the last 5 years on heart medication for a problem no one can diagnose. Doctors tell him they can't find anything that might be causing his heart to race out of control. He stays on the medication he's been given, but his heart continues to act strangely.
It would beat a little rapidly, then it would stop, or would skip beats.
Then, in 2000, Harley has his worst heart incident yet.
It was a typical day, headache, got through the day best I could. Another nightmare, got up, heart rate just going crazy. Just going crazy.
It is Harley's third trip to the ER in 5 years, all because of his heart.
Even though we had been in the emergency room several times, I never worried that I was going to lose my husband. But this time it was different.
Doctors have to shock Harley's heart back to its normal rate.
And so they put a pad here and a pad on the side.
The electricity courses through Harley's heart. After a few tense minutes, his heart rate normalizes. But Harley is shaken. This was too close a call.
And they waited a few hours and sent me home. Continue to take the medication you've been taking all along.
But Harley and DeWanda have been down this road before.
And he said, you know, this could be it.
And I told my wife, I am just resolved to die because there's nothing I can do. So I made sure insurances were all paid up, the policies were available where they could be.
My worst fear was that I would be a widow at a young age.
But then Alex Harris, a member of Harley's church who also happens to work at a sleep clinic, thinks he might be able to help.
I noticed signs that he was tired during the daytime. He was having more of these heart issues and his blood pressure was elevated. And then I felt really compelled to strongly urge that he come in for an all-night sleep test.
And I said, a what? I just dismissed the whole thing as nonsense. This man is crazy. What are you talking about?
And I chimed in and said, you know, Pastor, it wouldn't hurt, you know, for you just to go down there.
And I said, fine, all right, I'll get tested. But my intention was to go there to prove him wrong.
On New Year's Eve 2000, Harley drives to the St. John's Medical Plaza Sleep Disorders Center in Santa Monica.
But he looked really bad. He looked really heavy and he looked fatigued.
Alex Harris prepares Harley for the all-night sleep test.
We started by putting electrodes on his scalp to measure brain activity. Put electrodes to measure eye movements. We measured chin, muscle activity, EKG.
Wires everywhere. I went to bed just looking like a robot.
For the first 75 minutes that Harley is asleep, everything is normal.
All he did was snore. And I thought it was a negative test. I thought he was right all this time. He didn't need the test.
But when Harley goes into REM sleep, the dream stage of sleep, everything goes haywire.
The snoring stopped and the breathing stopped, and he just had a flat line on his breathing channel. And his oxygen dipped as a result, and I said, aha, he does have sleep apnea.
Obstructive sleep apnea is an often overlooked and very dangerous condition that affects as many as 20 million Americans. It occurs when tissues in the upper airway collapse at intervals during sleep. When these tissues collapse, they block the passage of air, and the sleeper can't breathe. The oxygen levels in the blood drop, and the brain sends a distress signal to the heart and lungs to kickstart respiration. In some sufferers, this process can happen hundreds of times a night. Alex attaches Harley to a continuous positive airway pressure machine, or CPAP.
It is a device that's essentially a blower that blows air into the upper airway via a hose and a mask, and that air would then splint the upper airway open to prevent airway obstruction.
For the first time in years, Harley sleeps through the night.
Wow, I had all this energy. And I said, so let's see the chart. Let's see what's going on.
Before Harley was put on the CPAP machine, his breathing was stopping from 30 seconds to almost a minute. At times, his oxygen levels dropped almost 20%. Once the CPAP was on, it was a completely different story.
My oxygen levels were straight as an arrow. No stress on the heart, perfect heart rhythm. The first words out of my mouth was, hook me up. Hook me up now.
Harley gets his own CPAP machine, and right away he can see a difference.
There wasn't the snoring anymore. He didn't have the headaches like he used to have. It was like the previous years had just been changed in a day.
Heart was fine. Blood pressure dropped. It dropped 30 points in a month. My doctor was shocked.
Thanks to the sleep study, Harley now knows that all his different symptoms had a common cause.
To have a 20% dip in oxygen saturation is very significant. That's going to cause headaches, that's going to cause nightmares, that's going to cause memory loss. It's going to have significant cardiovascular consequences.
Had Harley not been diagnosed, the compounding effects of all his symptoms could have been devastating.
He would have continued to gain weight, retain fluid, have cardiac events of varying types of arrhythmias and palpitations. But I have every reason to think that the course that he was going on would have just accelerated.
Harley was lucky. Sleep apnea is sometimes called a silent killer. Because of its very nature, the fact that it happens during sleep, sufferers have no idea they have a problem. Then the symptoms are treated individually, instead of as indicators of a more serious condition.
If my husband had died during this period of time, I just would have concluded that it was the heart condition that caused his death. I had nothing else to go on before the diagnosis of sleep apnea.
Today, Harley seems like a new man.
He's doing great. He's feistier and more energetic than ever. He's doing so good.
And I could never, ever accomplish in my 20s that I'm able to do now. Since I've been able to breathe again and to sleep again and to get my mind back. And it's just wonderful to live. It was a whole new lease of life given to me. It is beautiful.